Hello, everybody, and welcome to the 6th episode of the Mojoverse Podcast. I'm Mo.
And this is Joe.
And on this episode, we're going to be recapping some new TV shows, movies, anime, and games. So, Joe, I'm going to let you start because you've been watching quite a bit of anime.
I have. I've actually been binge watching quite a few. I have 4 here that I want to talk about. So first I'm going to start talking about Akagami no Shirayuki Hime, or in English it's called Snow White with the Red Hair.
How do you say those titles?
I've been learning a little bit of Japanese by watching some subs.
Nice.
But in this case I've actually been watching it all dubbed. This actually has nothing to do with Snow White, except for the fact that she has beautiful red hair, and they keep referring it to being as red as an apple. So I actually wasn't going to watch this at first, because I'm a little tired of fairy tale stories being redone, but I'm really glad that I did. It's not one of my favorites, but it's still pretty good. There's 12 episodes in Season 1 and 12 episodes in Season 2. Some people think that they wrapped it up with Season 2 because it says Fang at the end.
Yeah, I remember you mentioning that, and you haven't been able to find any new news, have you?
No, but it looks like there probably won't be a 3rd season. It does continue in the manga, but I don't think I'll be reading that. The story is basically all about a prince, and he falls in love with a commoner, so they do face issues with their statuses. She does become a court herbalist, though, which is a pharmacist, so she gets to see him every day because she lives at the castle. The love story is pretty cute. Normally I do want something more mature, because this has a whole Disney feel to it, but it's tolerable. It kind of annoys me a little bit because, you know, everybody thinks she's so perfect and every guy falls in love with her, even a prince from another kingdom. It's like all the princes love her too.
Aww.
I do enjoy the comedy though, and the joking around. It's pretty funny. The relationships with the other characters is what actually kept me watching, like the friendships. It's nice when they're all together. This is a little bit of spoiler warning, even though it's a little bit predictable.
Just by the way, there's going to be big time spoilers in this whole episode. Just stop listening if you haven't watched any of these.
Not too many, because I still want people to watch some of these. I was expecting Zen to propose. He's the prince, obviously, and Shirayuki is the name of the girl, the main character, which actually her name means, I know Yuki means snow, so I'm assuming her name is actually Snow White.
That makes sense.
I was expecting him to do this at the end of the 2nd season because he told his brother that he wants to marry her and he loves her and she's the one, but it doesn't go anywhere, and this relationship is really slow to progress. Like, they told each other they love each other, and that's about it. They still, I think they kissed once and they held hands once, but they still blush whenever they look at each other, and then they look away, and it's like, come on, you've kissed before.
Yeah,
so it gets a little stressful.
I find that so weird in a lot of animes. I don't know what it must be, like a cultural thing. Because it's just so you can't have just a regular relationship in a lot of these anime, and
I don't know why they're blushing, because they both know they love each other, so they don't have to hold anything back, like as if they're scared to be rejected or something.
Yeah. Well, it was the same thing in the Orange, right? We were talking about that, and it was very clear they had feelings for each other. But they talked about it a little bit, and they kind of quote unquote started dating-ish. Weird. I don't know.
They were still playing like they were clueless. And
yeah. And then when somebody would say, "Oh, you two like each other," she'd be like, "No, I don't." You know, but it's pretty obvious to everybody, including the two of them. So it's just very weird for me. You see that a lot in a lot of anime.
Yeah, it's pretty stressful. And I find it funny how the romance in the anime and many other animes is pretty PG, but then the violence and the blood and the dark story and the complex backstories, and it's kind of like 14A, so you're like, who is your target audience, really?
Yeah.
I'm really glad the 2 main characters actually went on adventures together, because that made the story more interesting, as opposed to just staying at the castle, because those moments got pretty boring. And honestly, I don't even care if she ended up with the other guy who liked her. He's a ninja and he's really cool. So it just goes to show how little their romance actually progresses in this. In the manga, I was going to read it and I wanted to know where it starts off, but apparently right after the second season, she leaves to study somewhere for 2 years abroad. So that just brings the romance to a stop again. And it takes long to get everywhere because they only go by horseback. And they actually, go through the whole travel. So it takes long to get anywhere and to do anything. And they've done enough of the separation thing, I think, with where he goes and rescues her once. So this kind of is a step backwards rather than forward.
Yeah, once you establish the relationship, you can't then be all like, okay, well, let's just mess with the relationship,
Yeah, they're kind of done with that. So let's actually go somewhere.
Let's move on with the story. We've done the relationship. It's addressed. Okay, let's do something with that. And it just seems like they just stopped.
Yeah, and the comedy actually wouldn't be as funny because it's the voices. Like, the voice actors are actually pretty good, and that's what makes it funny. So you just wouldn't get the same humor in the manga either. Alright, moving on. So I actually wanted to look up something that was similar to this anime. It's actually pretty cool. Every time I Google anime that's like this and then I put the title in, there's this website that keeps popping up and gives you a whole bunch of really good recommendations. So of course I wanted another romance.
Before we keep going, what's that website?
I'm not sure. I think it's called like Anime Network or something.
Okay,
It'll
we'll post that in the description of the podcast.
Yeah, so this one it gave me Akatsuki no Yona, or in English is called Yona of the Dawn. The main character's name is Yona.
I figured.
Pretty much the only similarity is that they both have red hair. And it's actually, at least it's pretty important to the story that they have red hair. I don't know why they keep making a fuss about red hair because everybody has crazy different hair colors in anime. So this is actually a real hair color, like a natural hair color.
Yeah, so we've seen red, we've seen blue, and they're going crazy over just kind of the red hair. So all right.
Yeah. This one actually is a little bit more mature, not as Disney, but I don't really count it as a romance because so far I've watched all of season 1. There's 24 episodes, and there is no romance at all. Like, the main character, who's the guy, his name is Hawk, he does actually think in his head quite a bit how much he's starting to have feelings for her and sees her as a woman now, not just a childhood friend. And he gives her a few hints that are actually pretty obvious, but either she's clueless and brushes them off, or she does it on purpose because she's not really ready to face that yet. And basically this whole story is about a princess, which is Yona. She turns 16, and this is not a spoiler because it happens in the first episode and it's actually in the summary, but she's betrayed by the one that she loves, which is her other childhood friend, and she was right about to confess her love to him, but she catches him murdering her father.
That'll put the kibosh on the relationship.
Yeah, it kind of does.
Yeah.
So now she runs away, she flees. Her childhood friend follows her. It's the only other person that she knows, and he decides to become her bodyguard and protect her. It's actually really interesting to see her transformation. It's really realistic because she goes from, blissfully unaware, useless princess who's now on the run, and she has to fight to survive every day, and she's out in the wilderness. Like, she's really brave, but at the same time she cries and she's trembling. Like, you can see her shaking, so nothing comes to her easily. Like, she actually has to work really hard, and she trains.
And do you see the progression in the character as the series goes on?
You do. Like, you actually see a transformation in her, and she grows, her personality changes, she becomes stronger.
Okay.
So it was actually pretty honest, and I liked it. What else? I know there was one point that really upset me. I think the main character actually made a slight move on her, but then she tells him to back off, so that's kind of the opposite of a romance there.
Well, they're not going to billboard it as an anti-romance, but alright.
Come on. Maybe something can still happen, I don't know. she does have a lot going on, to be fair.
Yeah, you're a little preoccupied after
a little traumatized.
Yeah.
It actually takes her a while to get out of that. She has kind of a PTSD state where she's in shock and she doesn't say much, and now she's just trying to process what happened. I would say this anime is actually pretty similar to Fushigi Yugi, because she does have to travel and gather bodyguards, or in this case, she has to find 4 people with the power of the dragons, because apparently they're all descendants from dragons, and their sacred duty is to protect the red dragon who decided to stay on Earth because he loves the people. So they wanted to protect him, and we're obviously thinking red dragon, red hair, must be the main character, because they all feel a strong need to protect her. And of course, all the men are really good looking and around the same age as her and like her, so this is a bit of a reverse harem, which is actually an anime genre.
Okay.
Let me tell you. Which is actually every time you get a main character who's a girl and surrounded by a bunch of good-looking men.
Who wouldn't want to be surrounded by good-looking bodyguards all the time, right?
Exactly. What I hate, actually, about the first couple episodes is actually that they do a huge foreshadowing scene right at the end where you see all of them together and they're fighting the enemy, and you already know who the enemy is and you know what each bodyguard looks like, which I think wasn't really a good idea, because what a spoiler of the entire series. Like, you get to see what they can do and what happens, and she has her hair cut and you actually see what she looks like later on. So now it's less suspenseful. Yeah, they kind of gave it all away right at the end. So I'm like, all right, I guess we can see how it happens, but it's not as interesting.
You know now that it happens, and that's kind of taking away a lot of the storytelling.
Yeah, and also for some reason, I don't know why this bothers me so much, but she's not wearing anything from like her wardrobe as a princess. She does actually do a good job of hiding herself and passing for a traveler, except for the point that she's still wearing her expensive princess earrings, and I kind of just want to take it off her ears because it ruins the whole image that she's trying to give, and she is in hiding.
Well, she has the status to show off, doesn't she?
Well, no, the whole point is to hide and pretend the princess is dead because everybody thinks she is, and that's good because they're trying to apprehend her, so they're looking for her right now to bring her back to the castle, and I don't know what they want to do, kill her. They tried to kill her. So anyway, just take those earrings off.
that might be like an artistic way of identifying the main character, like the way that the producers wanted it to be, but that also goes into that spoon feeding of the story that I don't like. It's like, we know that's the main character. All you have to do is watch 30 seconds of the show to know it's the main character. But they want something in the art to show that. And it's very weird they do that. Yeah, and they do that in TV shows and movies all the time. It's crazy. And
the only thing is that her voice is extremely irritating, so you kind of have to ignore it. And when she complains, it actually goes like 10 octaves higher.
Oh, jeez.
But it's not enough to switch to the sub, really. So everybody else is good. It's just her voice is extremely whiny. So I really hope there's a second season. Obviously, it's still unfinished. They get, right at the end, they get the last dragon that they need, and they kind of throw it in there because everybody else has a big story and how she has to convince them, or some of them, to join her, and we learn all about them. But in this one, he just kind of, one night, they're sitting by a fire, and he just kind of seriously pops up beside them and says, "What's up?" And they're like, "Oh, it's you."
Hey, look, it's a dragon.
Yeah, so he finds them. And we know nothing about his backstory or his powers yet. We don't know the fate of the kingdom, but it's actually pretty interesting. I don't know what she's going to do in order to take her... Is she going to take her kingdom back? Because even though he murdered her father, we learn that her father was actually a terrible king because everyone's in poverty and everybody, hasn't been heard. And this new king, he's going around and actually he's doing good. So he's not completely evil. He's actually being a good king. He's not a terrible ruler. So, and he's attending to people are suffering, and he's actually taking care of that and trying to give money back to other towns.
That's always an issue you have to deal with. Like, they have all these movies and everything about this rebel group overthrowing the monarchy, and it's like, a lot of times that might have been called for, But because the main character is a member of that monarchy, we root for them. It's like, oh yeah, take your throne and all that. But it's like, that might not be a good thing, you know?
Yeah, exactly. So it's a little bit hard to pinpoint who's bad and who's good in this. And there's a little cute, fluffy, tubby squirrel sidekick. So always love the cute little animal sidekicks.
Oh yeah.
All right, moving on. The next anime that I watched is Hiro no Kakera. I don't have much to say about this one because it was so boring. It's so bad. I wanted something similar to Kami-sama Kiss, which I super enjoyed, and actually I mentioned it was on my top 10, but it failed in every single area. The story is about a girl named Tamaki. She gets called upon by her grandmother to come to the shrine that she takes care of. There she discovers all of a sudden that evil spirits exist and they're after her, and she needs to precede her grandmother in becoming this legendary Tamayori princess and awaken her powers to seal away this sword that's too powerful for anyone to control. So again, she has to do this with her 5 guardians, and these 5 guardians have been training since they were young to be her protector, so they know everything and she knows nothing for some reason. I don't know why her grandmother never told her about this before. And there isn't really a love interest in this until really late in season 2, which actually comes out of nowhere because there was no growing feelings for either of them. It just happens. Literally the entire 2 seasons are just about the enemy stealing the artifacts that they needed, and they're scattered around the forest, and that's what they need to awaken the sword. So for some reason all the artifacts are all in one place. Instead of scattering them, across the world or somewhere harder to find.
But they did scatter them in the box that they buried in the forest, though, yeah.
They're in really obvious places because one of them's in a giant rock kind of in the middle of this clearing, and it has obvious talismans on it and everything. So it's not even really well hidden. And all the main characters do, because we already know they're not strong enough to fight the enemy, they just keep losing over and over again, and the enemy could just kill them and get it over with instead of having them come up against them every time. But for some reason they leave them be. They beat them up and then leave them be. And the artifacts just keep getting stolen one by one, and that's it. Very bad writing. Also, the grandmother in this anime is the worst. She's terrible. She's mean, and for some reason she doesn't say anything to her granddaughter, doesn't explain anything. She wants her to, be this powerful, be strong, but she doesn't tell her what to do and doesn't tell her anything what's going on. She's just confused, and grandmother's figure it out for yourself, and just throws this huge burden on her and doesn't even help her. I think at one point she even attempts to kill her or to kill boyfriend. So grandmother bad.
Well, it's like, you're going to be this amazing, warrior, chosen one, whatever.
Because grandmother had to be before.
Yeah. But usually there's supposed to be some sort of lineage. And they do that in Buffy. They have somebody there to basically talk about...
be a mentor.
Yeah. And there's none of that. And they're just like, hey, go, have fun.
Yeah.
Weird.
And the whole backstory wasn't even really well explained. The grandmother could have explained it to her, which actually ultimately explained it to us, the viewers. But no, nobody really cares about giving out the story. So, yeah, not much happens.
Is there more exposition than the end of Sword Art Online? Or less, where the guy's just like, oh, why'd you do it? And he said, I forgot.
Yeah.
More or less?
Less.
Less than that, okay.
Yeah, because we don't even know what's going on.
Oh, wow, okay.
They're like, they want to release the sword, they don't want to release the sword. I have no idea. Terrible.
All right.
Next one I watched, Fate Stay Night. I actually watched this anime a couple months ago, but I only got around to reviewing it now. This anime was okay, but it's pretty confusing. I actually had to look up a few things, what's going on. I don't know what these servants things were, and I feel like I'm missing this whole backstory or something. Something's missing. So I actually found out that it was a video game first, I think, and then a visual novel, and apparently there's a movie and a prequel and other tie-ins, and it kind of branches off all over the place, so it's pretty all over the place. I guess you have to watch all of it to understand, but I wasn't interested enough in that. This particular one, the story is about a normal boy. His name's Shiro, and one night he gets caught up in a war with human magic users. They can use magic, and they have these superhuman partners, and they're called servants. In order to protect himself from one of them, because he gets attacked, he summons his own servant, and her name's Saber. Now the two have to fight in this Fifth Holy Grail War, which is a battle royale where all of them have to fight, and the sole survivor gets the Holy Grail, and that grants them a wish. Servants are basically these heroic spirits, and they're made into special familiars. They all have different rankings, and they're bound to their master, so they have to listen to their master. They can refuse their master, so the master has these 3 seals where they can actually force them to do something 3 times, but then once that's gone, they're allowed to disobey, I guess.
But if you collect enough badges, they'll start listening to you?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, good one. So all these servants were apparently humans in past lives. They passed away because they died bravely in battle or something. So example, one of them is Hercules and the other one's King Arthur. That's a little bit of a spoiler because they don't want to give away who they actually are, because apparently that gives away their power and what they're allowed to do. But you can only summon one of them, so once you do that, I guess you're stuck with them. There's actually a lot more to explain about this, but it would get way too convoluted. The main character does struggle with the idea of killing off the other players just to win some weird war he knows nothing about. So this just keeps happening over and over again, where he kind of refuses to fight, and he's mostly waiting for the others to kill each other off. He mostly just sticks to defending himself.
Well, that's what I was saying with Hunger Games. It's like there's all these aggressors and stuff like that, and I'm like, if you can just find a way to survive, just find a little spot where you can just kind of hang out for the first couple days, let everybody just tucker themselves out and kill themselves off, and then it makes it a lot easier for you, right?
Yeah, basically.
But that's the pacifist
action
way.
scenes that you do get are pretty cool, but I don't know. The main character, Shiro, ends up falling in love with his servant, Saber, but it doesn't really go anywhere, and the anime ends really terribly, just so you know. Apparently, I think there's other outcomes to how, for the ending, but I don't know how you get there, so just let's not get into that.
Okay. Long and complicated, I guess. Okay. So now it's my turn to participate a little bit. We've been playing a little bit of the Pokemon Sun and Moon demo. If you don't know it exists, don't worry. We didn't either. It was actually a customer that told us about it. But what it is you're playing through basically a smaller version of the town, and you go around, you do little events. They give you items that you can then later transfer to the actual game. So it's pretty cool.
It's definitely worth doing. We played the whole thing. What we liked about it was, first of all, you get to ride Pokemon in this game, I guess. And you get a little riding outfit doing it too, because in this demo you get to use Tauros and dash around breaking boulders. So that was actually a lot of fun.
And you move around really fast. It's really cool.
Yeah, charging, and you can also you can run, but you could by pressing B, I think, in this.
Yeah, you can get through the whole town really quickly.
And then they made you do some cheap little version of Pokemon Snap, which is not exactly what I want. I want a new Pokemon Snap game. Yeah. They made you go in a cave, and you can startle Pokemon, I guess, by taking pictures of them. You can see them running back and forth. So I guess it's just kind of like a timing thing where you have to take a picture of them square in the middle.
Yeah, that was a neat, like a small little version of Pokemon Snap, but it instigated a battle, right? And one thing that's not in this demo is you can't catch any Pokemon. You can in one level, but you have to give them back. Which sucks, but it does trigger the event, and you get an item out of that.
And there were no randomized battles in there in the cave at all, so I don't know if this was just a small mini game to show you what the camera in this game would be like, or if all caves are going to be like that. I'm not quite sure.
Well, you also said, we're going to a cave, there's going to be a zillion Zubats, and there wasn't, so...
Yeah, and speaking of the battle system, it actually is a little bit more detailed. It has a little more explanation. It actually tells you if a Pokemon's going to be vulnerable to a certain one or not, or your attacks, actually, it says right underneath.
Yeah, that was really neat, because I always forget which attack does what, and and what kind of element they have. So to see, you encounter it and it says, not very effective, super effective, right next to the attacks. And then you can also hit the R button and press the attack, and it gives you a little description right there to tell you what the move does. So that's so helpful for me because I have an atrocious memory and I can't remember what every single attack does.
I liked it better when it popped up automatically, though. For some reason, this makes you press L and then B or something.
But it does get it out of the way, though.
It's kind of annoying.
Yeah.
But they also let you try out a Z move in this. You get to control Pikachu, who's already leveled up, and they do their little dance thing, and you get his little powerful move, which was kind of cool, I guess. It looks like you can be a girl in the trailers that we have seen, but you don't get to choose in this demo.
Yeah, and your name is Sun, too.
So yeah, and the whole time you're using as a boy trainer at level 36. You can transfer this Greninja at the end into the full version game, so you get to keep this Pokemon. You get to do 3 things to get 3 separate items in this, and it is worth it to do because you can transfer all items to the full version as well. So you want to go to 10 Carat Hill and fight 3 trainers. There's one trainer you talk to at the end, and she gives you 1 star piece. Then you need to use the Tauros to break a boulder, which is right on the right in 10 Carat Hill. There's a Pokemon catching challenge. So you just run around in the grass, you catch 3 different Pokemon, and then the guy at the end, he gives you 1 nugget. And then once you're back into the town, go all the way right of the Pokemon Center, and there's a bunch of Slowpoke blocking the road, so I guess you can't go any further. You talk to the girl on the left there, and she'll take you to another area called Maholo Trail. You use your Tauros to blast through all the boulders on the path, and you go all the way to the top. And then there's this creepy, mysterious old man who's just pops out of the scenery in the background, and he gives you 3 Stardust. So if you haven't seen online, everybody's fussing over this creepy old bald guy. He apparently says weird and different things every time. I don't know if it's just a joke or he says to pay him no mind. I don't know if they're going to do something with this guy later in the full version.
I hope they do because it's really funny just to have this, random whack job just popping up throughout the game. So I really want them to take that comedy and just bring it forward, or even do something in the story with him. I don't know if he's our main character's dad or something like that. I don't know, but we'll see.
I think they're just poking fun at us.
Yeah, but it's still funny though.
So if you didn't pay attention to the characters of the town before, actually talk to all of them and see what certain ones say, because they tell you, they give you a number at the end of the sentence saying how many days to come back and talk to them depending on when you started the demo. So 1 day later after you talk to you have to talk to somebody 1 day later after you start the demo, and he gives you something. And then 5 days later, 12 days later, 18 days later, and then 24 days later. So you have to give yourself a little bit of time before the release of the game.
And they do count down that when you talk to them, like you said. So I remember just the other day when we were playing, I went down to the docks. There was a security guard and said, "Oh, there's something that's going to go down at these docks. There's a shady deal. I reckon it'll be at about 15 days." So it's like, okay, great.
And then you can celebrate Pikachu's birthday.
Yeah.
Some of these are just events, and that's all they are. But some of them actually give you different items as well.
But that's good. I like how they do that because now every system is connected to the internet. So it allows them to do events like that and
update stuff.
Everybody come play on this day. We're going to release a patch and you get this special item or something. Once you get tired of the game, it gives you an opportunity to go back and play a little bit.
Yeah, it makes it kind of fun, but I wouldn't spend any time training or catching any Pokemon because you don't get to keep those. So really it's just to give you a chance to play around with the buttons, I guess, but you can do that with the real game and actually get something out of it. And I was told apparently if you play the demo on Friday nights and Sunday nights, you get an event scene with 2 of some of the main characters of the game called Lily and Hal. You don't really get anything of this except for just a little scene
Well, first impressions of it looks like it's going to be fun.
It looks like they added a whole bunch of
there's a lot
stuff.
Of
There's actually, you can go inside a bunch of little cafes and stuff, but they don't let you into certain other areas. But what I did see was a store with a t-shirt on the top, little logo. So I'm assuming we actually get outfits in this one. That would be awesome, again, to bring that back from X and Y.
Yeah, that was neat. It was usually in games I don't like dressing up my character. I just, whatever. But it got to a point where I caught so many Pokemon, and then I battled so much I had a lot of money, so I said, what the heck, I'm going to do some accessorizing and stuff. And it was fun. So maybe, they're going to go into that. I'm going to say probably because it is a direct successor from X and Y, because Omega Ruby Alpha Sapphire was a remake from those older games. So they couldn't add too much, but they're taking a lot of that stuff, but also adding on it, and it looks like it's going to be fun. So we're really excited.
They're also going to be doing Mega Stones again, but there's a new bracelet. We had the bracelets from Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, but they're making... The characters will be wearing new bracelets for these Z moves.
Yeah, that's right. And if you've pre-ordered the game, you're going to get a Munchlax with the stone that you need to do the Z move with, or something like that. I forget what it was, but
so. Or just
so that's basically if you've pre-ordered the game. If you haven't yet, well, you can't. But it's still it's something to look forward to if you have pre-ordered it. But it looks like it's going to be a fun game. I always enjoy playing the Pokemon games, and they're a lot of fun. So yeah. So we watched the other day. We watched Suicide Squad as well.
I know we're a little behind on that because it's been out for a while. It did just play in the IMAX. I don't know if it's still playing, but for the month of October, it was there at the Science North.
Yeah. So now that you're getting this in November, go see it in October. The movie itself was a little slow to start, and then they seemed to be making up for lost time towards the ending. It got a little rushed. But
I guess we are getting a little tired of origin stories for every single character, but they did really fast flashbacks for everybody.
Yeah, and I'm okay with that. A lot of people know the stories of the Joker and Harley Quinn, but I think that's about it. I would have liked to go in to see who all the other characters were, but they seem to focus on those two, which is good. But I think the casual
Joker
watcher
actually wasn't really in the movie all that much. Not that we were expecting him to be, because it is just the Suicide Squad. But he was mostly just rescuing Harley Quinn for the entire movie. 2-3 times he attempts it, I think. And I am kind of confused with what the overall plot is and who the bad guy is. At first I thought, okay, we're going after the Joker, and then, okay, what's happening with all these weird black things showing up all around town? What are they shooting at? I'm confused. Oh, wait, now the Enchantress is actually the bad guy. Wait, she made the black things out of people.
Yeah, and the whole when the beginning, when they were setting up the Suicide Squad, the character that Viola Davis was playing, she had the Enchantress as part of the Suicide Squad, so they set it up. Okay, here's what we're gonna do. So convention tells you that that's going to be the Suicide Squad, and then the Enchantress just goes crazy, and then I don't know, that one was a little weird.
She is kind of cool,
though. She's a great character. I really like the character design of the Enchantress, but also the effects around her is really cool.
Yeah, the action was pretty good. The humor was a little forced though. The whole friendship thing amongst them was a little cheesy, and how they said it. Dialogue is a little bit weak. There were a lot of people upset about how there was more romance between Harley Quinn and Joker, and they were not showing the abusive side of their relationship, and it was a little bit cuter. I do agree to a certain extent, but I can't help but actually like their relationship. I mean, who doesn't like crazy villains?
I love crazy villains.
It's kind of the point of this entire movie, to feel a little bit bad for villains, how they're a little bit understood and they have unfortunate circumstances that lead them to do bad things.
I always like a crazy villain or just a crazy character. It's so hard to act, so if you can pull it off really well, it's a lot of fun. I think Jared Leto did a good job at playing that Joker.
The laugh was actually good. I mean, an evil laugh is kind of hard to do nowadays and not come off weird.
It was a little sharp to me, actually. I wasn't a fan of it. When he was laughing, it sounded more cartoony, and that might be a good thing, but it just didn't really get me. like other
And they needed
Jokers.
to play up his crazy a little bit
Yeah.
more. The only scene I enjoyed where he's lying in the middle of a whole bunch of weapons and knives, that was kind of funny.
Yeah, that was funny. I like that. But it was, all in all, it was a fine movie. I don't think it deserves all of the stuff it's getting online, but I think a lot of that is coming from hardcore DC
Or
people, comic book fans, or the DC fans. We aren't really DC fans, so we kind of came into the Suicide Squad with no context. It ended up being a fairly good movie. You know, it's not one of my favorite, but it was all right. I enjoyed it. Now,
last thing we want to talk about for a new TV show that just started, because a few of them are ending now. The name of the show is called Class. It's actually a Doctor Who spin-off. If you don't know about it, it's playing on BBC on Saturdays.
it is available on iTunes right now. It's not available in North America
First
any
3
other way
episodes
right
are
now.
out, so we've watched all 3. We want to start with saying the opening theme is kind of terrible, very messy. It starts off being like a 90s rock song, and then they add like reggae to it, and then there's like this heavy guitar in the background, and there's all these colorful lights and weird images.
It was great because I'm a musician, and I saw that, just lost my mind, because there's the singing is just so laid back, you know, and then there's this heavy guitar just
Doesn't
underneath
do the
it. It's
show
crazy.
justice.
No,
anyway.
it doesn't. I hope they
Who
change
really
that.
cares about the opening theme? We skip that now
Yeah,
anyway.
well, everybody skips it. Yeah, the story is pretty slow going at the beginning. It's more we're
It
getting
takes
to
a
know the
while
characters.
to understand
yeah.
what's going on because they don't really explain it to you. You kind of have to just hang on for the ride. I really love one of the main characters, though, Miss Quill. She's played by Catherine Kelly, which you might recognize her from Coronation Street. I used to watch that. She has a really good accent. She's kind of the humor of the whole show. She's really amazing. A scene that I absolutely adore in episode 1 that I have to mention is when they're decorating for the prom, but at the same time they're fighting monsters. So the unknowing poor president of the school just walks in and she screams out, "Leave us," and then she adds, "We're decorating," with kind of a funny flair.
And her timing is really good, and just the whole reluctant. We don't want to get too much into the story because we'll spoil it. But she is a reluctant hero or heroine, and
she's kind of stuck with this job of helping these kids help the school.
Yeah, there's all these situations where the kids get into some trouble, and she comes in and is like, "Okay, fine, I'll help," and then she just helps and everything's better, and she's just like, "Okay, now get out of here," you know. It's really funny.
Yeah, the beginning of the first episode is a bit bland. At first, these monsters you're fighting are shadow monsters. It starts off a little creepy, kind of like the Vasta Narada, and then all of a sudden they take shape. And it's really bad animation. The Shadow King, it looks kind of a little bit funny. But then we get a special appearance of Peter Capaldi as the Doctor, and it fixes everything at the end of this episode. Of course, his acting is as perfect as ever. He adds a lot of sophistication to the show, which the show was severely lacking in so far. It was a nice treat for Doctor Who fans when the Doctor looks, he's in the prom room, with the other cast members, and he's looking at a board and he sees Claire's name on it with a bunch of other teachers' names as well as Danny Pink, and it looks like he kind of recognizes a little bit because at this point he's not supposed to remember who Clara is.
We don't know exactly where this fits in the timeline of the Doctor, but that's where we think it is because he didn't recognize the name.
It seems to be at the end of what we've watched so far.
Yeah, and that's what we're assuming, and that's what it seems to be because he looked up at the name and was confused, but you know he knows that name, you know, so he has obviously forgotten. Him being on the show, though, you said it adds sophistication, also like a bit of a veteran presence on set, right?
Yeah.
And
he kind of sets the whole story up for you too, because he saves the day again, but he says he can't be around and everywhere all at once. So he basically gives the task to all these main characters, all these kids who have to get together and take care of this now. They have to protect the school, which the name of the school is Coal Hill. He wasn't able to properly seal the time rift where all these monsters are coming out of, and he said they're going to probably keep coming out of this time rift, and he doesn't know when it's going to happen, and they need to be there in case it does, because he won't be able to.
Yeah, and that's a similar story as Torchwood and all that stuff, but if they can do it in a bit more of a modern sense, I think they'd be able to pull it off. They're doing a little bit more mature content, a little bit more than Doctor Who, because there is some blood, some gory elements to it. So I don't know how people are going to react to that, but I'm enjoying it so far.
Yeah, it started off, we thought it was family friendly, and then all of a sudden in the second episode, because we didn't get any of this in the first, they bring up the gore. There's blood everywhere. It's dark. So we would recommend this for teens and up, actually. It's a lot darker than we were expecting. And there actually is a butt scene.
Yeah.
We see a butt in episode 2.
We're not expecting that.
I like how the Doctor, going back to the first episode, when he is saving the day, he actually says... he's helping them because he does have a soft spot for the last of their species, and we do find out that Charlie, one of the boys of the group, and Miss Quill are aliens from another planet, and that planet got wiped out from the Shadow King, so they are the last of their species now. The Shadow King does get away at the end of the first episode, so hopefully we get a satisfying return from him, just to make it kind of worth it. I mean, he did kind of annihilate an entire planet. So now they're kind of running away on Earth, and Miss Quill is protecting Charlie because
she has to.
Yeah, he's the prince of that planet.
Apparently, that's her sentence.
If she doesn't protect him, she actually dies. So I guess there's like a spell involved. She can't use any weapons though, or at least when Charlie isn't in danger. So she has to wait until he gets targeted first, which I guess kind of adds to the humor and the difficulty for her, because she is a strong warrior. She was part of a freedom fighting group, and she had her own army, but she's restricted in a lot of ways. Again, going back to, we were talking a little bit about the second episode, how they bring up the violence and the gore. It's kind of funny because the monster of this episode ends up leaving because they end up talking to it. So there's there's not much of a showdown there with fighting. They just, reason with it, and that's it. So not as cool as how the Doctor does it, but I guess that'll do as long as it's not the point of every episode, because it does seem like they're going to be doing a different monster of the week or of the day. Hopefully we get to know a little bit more of what's going on with this overall plot that they have going on.
Yeah, and it is hard to kick off a series right away. Everybody's into it, let's go. It's going to be slow to begin with, unless you're Joss Whedon, and we wish everybody was, but it's hard to start off the series. So we're going to give it its chance and see, because
the third episode does get a lot better, though. We get to know everybody a lot better, all the kids, their backstories, because at first they kind of have these very generic stereotypes. They're loner kids that are rejected by everybody else, and they each have their own little sob story, it seems. But they're starting to become a little bit more likable the more we know about them.
Yeah, and that was my main complaint. We watched the first 2 episodes, and it was just, here's that character, here's that character. They're using the same stock characters that they've been using for 30 years, I was reading an article, and it said that teen dramas are a lot more popular in North America than they are in England. So, this is one of their first attempts at that, but it's stereotypes that we've been used to for years now.
Well, they do have, it's like they are trying to go with a lot of American humor, which is a little bit weird. It was nice that they did reference Buffy by calling the Time Rift, or their school, the Hellmouth. Yeah. They did talk about Vampire Diaries as well.
Yeah, but what I was saying with the generic characters and what you said, the third episode really gave a lot more depth to those characters. So I hope they keep going with that, because they were not very relatable other than just the stereotypical characters. Now, after the third episode, we can identify a lot more with them. So if they keep going, I think it'll be a really good series.
A lot less teen angst and actual showing of this one poor kid who just keeps seeing all the gore and then having to relay it to the rest, and actually lost a leg. In one of the episodes, the doctor was able to save him with some sort of alien centipede leg that he still has to, get used to. So he's having a little bit of PTSD there, which is normal. So
totally understandable.
Yeah, and he pukes at one point. Also, very reasonable reaction to everything that's going on.
Oh yeah. I hope they do a little bit more long arcs. Not necessarily like Lost did, because those never finished, but a longer arc of storyline instead of just, here's the monster, we beat the monster, here's another monster, we beat the monster, right?
There seems to be something with the prince brought back from his home planet, a box that apparently holds all the souls of everybody he has lost on that entire planet. He lied and said the box was empty, but at the end of the first episode, he shows you that it's actually not. So we'll see what they do with that. Yeah, and if they can get out of the bad guy a week thing, but go into a little bit more of that story, or go into the prince's backstory or something like that, I think they'll do good. So all in all, I'm optimistic. Worth watching.
Oh, it's a really good. It's a really good show. I do recommend it. Check it out. So that's about all the time we have for the 6th episode of the Mojoverse Podcast. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Tumblr, and YouTube at Mojoverse Sudbury. You can get the podcast on iTunes, and you can get it on Google Play Music. So if you have an Android, you can listen to us there. So thank you, everybody, for listening. My name is Mo.
And this is Joe.
And we'll talk to you next time on the Mojoverse Podcast.